Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Augusto Argandoña Fine Arts. Anytime in this narrated tutorial, you can click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you should want to learn about my virtual classes or want to see my paintings, you may do so in my website at aafinearts.com. This tutorial is about how to paint duck and water and sort of a nautical theme with watercolors that also includes quite a bit of fog rolling in from the water, from the ocean towards the hills in the distance. This particular image, I believe, is in either Oregon or Washington State. I think it's pretty much in Oregon. But anyway, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a foggy scene, so the colors are going to be muted and not much of a sunlight, but there will be sunlight, but not much of a bright sunlight. It will be a kind of overcast, foggy image. So without much ado, let's start with the fun part of this tutorial, and that is the painting part. So here we go. I'm going to get myself located situated on my drawing table here, and I'm going to start by telling you that how I work. I work primarily on a drawing table that's about at an angle, approximately 15 degrees, maybe a little less. And my paper is 140-pound cold press, bright white. And I like this type of paper better than the rough or any other paper because it allows me to do the things that the way I paint. It's very well suited for the way I paint. And I use both round and flat brushes, but I'm more partial to the flat brushes, and that's mostly what you're going to see today. So I'm going to go ahead and start by getting the upper part of the paper wet, fairly wet, because this is the area that will have the fog. So all of this is going to be very, very wet. And I'm going to bring that down more or less almost to the top of some of these buildings. Quite a bit of water here. This image is pretty much in the distance, so things are going to be kind of blending. So okay, so here we go. All of this is very wet. And now that the area is wet, I'm going to bring in a little bit of cobalt blue right onto that wet area, and some Payne's gray. And onto that wet area, I'm going to just add some color, that muted color typical of foggy images. A little bit more water to my brush, bring a little bit more of the Payne's gray with cobalt blue, very little cobalt blue, and add a little bit more of those colors just quickly right onto these areas where these buildings are going to be. There's some little bit of a color there. And I clean my brush and bring those colors over here. Right like that. All in very short strokes towards the distance, towards the edge. Now this area is going to be kind of light. This area is going to be a little bit darker. So I'm going to start bringing in some more Payne's gray but also going to bring in a little bit of, I think I'm going to bring in some burnt umber into that Payne's gray. And start over here and start doing some of the hill in the distance. With some of the edge silhouettes of some trees, evergreens towards the distance, like that. A little bit more of those colors. I'm going to bring some ultramarine also into that blue. Here come those silhouettes of the evergreens into the distance, like that. And then I'm not gonna let this dry. I'm gonna come down like that. And as the paper begins to dry, I'm going to start bringing some green, undersea green, with cobalt blue. Do the next layer. Some of the greenery, evergreens over here, like that. And come down over here and start blocking off those areas where the buildings are gonna be. There we are. Here's the next layer. I'm gonna bring a little bit more color this time before it dries, before the paper dries. I'm going to bring a little bit of aureolin yellow into that mixture. Also some, I think I'm going to do a little bit of rose sienna. The paper is beginning to dry now. Get some of those silhouettes of the evergreens. A little bit more water into my brush. I think I'm going to change to raw umber. Yeah, raw umber with undersea green. And I'm going to bring in some of the Payne's gray into that. This time is going to be much darker. This is still like that. Still doing the silhouette of this building and those evergreens. Paper is beginning to dry now, so I'm going to add a little bit more water to this area, not much. There. And then bring those evergreens. Clean my brush. Bring some cobalt blue. The cobalt blue is an ideal color to show distance and misty things, misty colors. There we are. There. Like that. I'll change brushes to a round brush, and we'll put a bit of water in my brush. I'm going to do another layer here. Like that. There. And that's pretty much it. minimize the edge of that area over here. Get some trees, deciduous trees and things like that. There, okay. Also going to get some raw sienna. A little bit of aureole in yellow on this green that's already in my palette, and got some different, there's a grassy area over here, so I'm going to bring that and start blocking off some of those areas for these items that are on the dock. Some posts and boxes and things like that. There we are. There's some little area like that there. And bring some of that aureole in yellow and do a little bit of this little green hill in the distance. Minimize that. Put some trees and things like that over here. A little bit more green and some cobalt blue. A little bit more water in my brush here. Another layer of trees. And bring that down. Like that. There's about 3 layers. Do some of that over here. Like that. Okay, I'm gonna leave that alone now. Make these a little taller evergreens. There we are. It's about 3 layers. I'm going to minimize this blue area and get a little bit more of the foggy feel over here. There, yeah. Okay. So now, while that's drying, I'm going to get my flat brush again, and I'm going to bring in some of the water over here. There's going to be a boat there. There's some rocks over here, and we'll do that later. There's another boat over here. There's some rocks over here too. So I'm going to bring some more water over here. Cover it quite a bit. And I'm going to bring the same colors, cobalt blue with some of this green and gray. And I'm going to lay those colors over here. This time I'm going to bring in a little bit of sepia into that mixture. Sepia and cobalt blue. color that I wanted. Start blocking out this boat. And bring that a little bit more water in my brush. And come down over here. Leave a little bit of the white. Also, I'm going to bring in a little bit of manganese blue, very light. There we are. Let that dry. This is beginning to dry rather nicely. While that's drying, I'm going to get this area a little bit more defined with the edge of that boat and the water edge there. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry. This is dry. Yeah, almost. I'm gonna wait a little bit. While I'm waiting for that area to dry, I'm gonna lay out the base color for some of these rocks. So I'm gonna add some water without touching this area. And I'm gonna get some sepia and burnt umber. And almost with a dry brush effect, I'm gonna do a little bit of that. Like that. Now get some little bit of water in my brush and lighten up some of these areas. Leave some of that white. Like that. Then I'm going to come back with some sepia, straight sepia. A little bit of raw umber and this lower area. Paper's dry here now, so I'm going to do some of these rocks that are there, like that. Okay, I'm going to get my sepia and some cobalt blue and come over here and define some of these rocks a little bit more. Like that. Like that. Get some my wet brush, get some water there, and don't have too much detail on those rocks except basically just shapes and color. Like that there. Okay. By now this is gonna be pretty much dry, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna get a very rich mixture of undersea green, some sepia, and ultramarine. Very dark, very rich. And come back over here, and on this dry paper, And we'll do those evergreens. We looking towards all the light, so all of this will be in dark. Leave some daylight in between to show the light there. Yeah, like that. Bring more color, less water. There, like that. Some over here. Okay, now I'm going to bring more, bring some Payne's gray into that mixture, more sepia, and then this green, and come down here, make it this dark. A little bit more ultramarine and the green. Get down over here, do a little bit of a evergreen here to accent some of these white areas in front. Come down to these rocks now. For those rocks, I'm going to use burnt umber and the sepia and blend it right into that area like that. We blend it right into the green. And now I'll take my pocket knife, if I can find it. Here it is. And while the paper is damp there, I'm going to get some of these rocks. There. There we are. All right. So now this area I'm going to start defining it a little bit more. There we are. I'm going to let that dry. Now I'm going to change brushes to a smaller round brush, and now I think I'm going to use one of my flat brushes and get some of this gray color that I have in my palette and do these buildings. You know, these roofs are going to be light. I'm going to do all of this in one pass with the same color, pretty much. Just leaving some white on top of the dock. There's another roof here. And I bring some of the cobalt blue into that area, a little bit of the manganese. This is going to be much darker. This wall. There's some items here. I'm going to do the same thing here. and this wall, this building. Bring some of the gray, some cobalt blue and sepia, and do some of this. Buildings like that. A little bit of the ultramarine. Like that. I'm not going to leave those white because of the foggy areas. I'm going to darken some of these walls. There, that's better. Okay. Now, I get my round brush and I think I'm gonna get some burnt brown matter and some of this gray color that I have in my palette, and I'm gonna change the color of this building here. There we are. Like that. Get some sepia, some ultramarine blue, and start doing all the little details. Yes, it's a shallow roof there. Yeah. A bit more ultramarine and the sepia. And we'll do the rest of these buildings, all the detailing, like that. Put some windows. There. Doors and things like that. Items on top of that building. Now I'm going to bring in some burnt sienna and do some darker areas around these buildings. And like that. Get some of that gray of this roof. Get a smaller pointed brush, get some sepia and the ultramarine, and start doing a little bit more of these little details. Like that. Now this is beginning to shape. So now I'm going to get some some burnt sienna almost a dry brush type. Come over here. And do that with the burnt sienna. Outline this boat like that. Here's my smaller brush. Now get some burnt umber and sepia. And they come over here. To get those rocks. It's a little bit more of the darker colors. This dark. A little bit more of the burnt sienna, this time with ultramarine blue. And come over here and do this, finish up this dark. And blocking out this area for this boat. There we are. Get a little bit of the white areas that are exposed. There. Like that. Now I'm gonna go ahead and do more of that, this dark. Get some of these pilings also. This boat ends over here, so I'm going to go over here like that. There's another boat here too. And there's a flat area, some part of the dock over here. I'll leave that alone. Bring that all the way down here like that. Now I'm going to bring more ultramarine with sepia, very rich, with almost a dry brush effect. Okay, like that. And then we'll do the top of this dock. And we'll add a little bit of little color to this white board that makes the top of the dock. Like that. And we got some high items here. We'll put those too. And the pilings. Okay, so now I'm going to get my small flat brush and get very little water into the brush, very little water, and with almost with a dry brush, I'm going to start removing some of the color from some of these areas from this duck, exposing the pilings. Like that. A little bit more water in my brush. Do the same thing over here. Like that. And same thing over here. There. Because of the ultimate, the burnt sienna that I used earlier, that's what I'm able to lift all of this. All of this color, exposing the dry colors for the dry lighted colors for those pilings. It's better to paint this dark that way rather than and I need all this dark area because all of this dark is under the duck. There, like that. I'm also gonna do some areas like this. Like that. Same thing over here. There we are. There. So now that duck is really nice. It looks pretty much like a duck now. So now what I'm gonna do is get my small round brush, put some of the items that are on the duck, get some of cobalt blue, a little bit of manganese blue, and there's always some type of boxes or fishing items here. This happened to be blue. Put some of that here. Like that. Also, there will be some orange or kind of reddish orangey color items. Like that. Items on top of this duck. So now, before I do anything else, almost finishing the painting, I'm going to do this boat. Because of the foggy image, some of these boats are also kind of gray. I'm going to use a little bit of ultramarine to do that. Be a little darker. A little bit of the gray, the ultramarine, make it darker gray. And there's some of this windows all the items there. Like that. There's also some burnt sienna for some items that are inside. Some rusty areas. Like that. I'm gonna darken some of these holes also. Remove some of the color from that hole and make it look kind of dirty, because these boats are not pristine. So there we are. Also get a little bit of the blue and kind of tone this white down like that. There we are. I'm gonna get more of this detailing. This flat area of this dock over here. And get some of the pilings there too. Like that. Okay, so now I'm going to get a flat brush and I'm going to wet this area a little bit. I'm going to bring all these reflections down. Put some sepia and burnt sienna and come down here, get those rocks. Combine all that dark with that reflection. Like that. Bring a little bit of that Payne's gray to that. Combine some of those areas from the dark right into this reflection. Like that. Now we're also going to bring some raw umber into this reflection. and over here for these rocks. A little bit of the undersea green there. And some of the ultramarine blue to that too. To those reflections. The raw amber and the ultramarine blue make a really nice color for that reflection. Like that. Also, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to wet this area, missing that boat. And I'm going to bring some undersea green, quite a bit of it, with ultramarine, quite a bit of it, and this brown that I have in my palette already. More of the undersea green, and on this wet area bring that reflection from those trees, missing the hull of that boat. Some Payne's gray, a little bit more of that burnt amber. And blend that right into that green, into this other reflection over here. And this, I'm going to tilt the board a little bit. That. Clean my brush, add a little bit more water over here. Oops, gotta clean my brush really good. Bring some of that green and blue into this area, into that wet area, and get that reflection from those other greens. Like that. Bring some of those colors over here. And now I'm going to get rid of this brown with some of the manganese blue here with the gray. There we are. And use that color to add a little bit of more of the ripples in the water. Especially over here. Same thing over here. There we are. Okay. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is get this gray, a little bit of cobalt blue, and tone down some of these rocks. There we are. There. Okay, and the painting is about almost finished. Look at this. With my flat brush. And get a little bit of the reflection from that boat. Some of that like that. This I'm gonna leave it pretty much the way it is. I think I'm gonna do a little bit of pick up a little bit of color horizontally, like that over here. There, and the painting is finished. So I'm going to remove this tape and bring a darker board, and you will be able to appreciate this a lot more than on this white board. Move this also. And here comes the dark board. We'll pick it up. I'm going to minimize it a little bit. And there it is. This foggy time of the day. A little light, about 3 layers over here. The very distant hill with some silhouettes of trees. The next layer over here, some deciduous trees, some evergreens. Another little layer over here, kind of foggy into this area. These are not in the fog. There's a more crispier, much closer grouping of evergreens, and then the dock and all these reflections onto the water. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my painting. And please visit my website at aafinearts.com, where you will see information about my virtual classes and a selection of my paintings and prints. Thank you again. Until next time.